Who Was Franklin Roosevelt by Margaret Frith. Chapter 2, Meeting Eleanor. Unlike Franklin, Eleanor had an unhappy childhood. Her father was the younger brother of Theodore Roosevelt, who became president in 1901. Elliot was handsome and engaging. Eleanor adored him, and he adored his little daughter, but he had a bad drinking problem. Her mother, Anna Hall Roosevelt, was a cold and distant mother. She called Eleanor Granny because she was such a serious child. Eleanor felt like an ugly duckling next to her beautiful mother. Both of Eleanor's parents and her younger brother had all died by the time she was 10, so she and her 6-year-old brother were sent to live with their grandparents. The Halls found it a burden to have 2 young children come to live with them. Often lonely, Eleanor would escape into dreams of happy times with her father. One bright spot was Christmas time, when she would see her Roosevelt cousins at parties. Franklin was at one of these parties. He asked her to dance. She accepted even though she didn't know how. It didn't seem to matter to Franklin. After that, they didn't see each other again for several years. Eleanor went off to boarding school in England. She said later that these were the happiest years of her life. At 18, she returned to America. As a young girl from a famous family, it was time for her to take her place in New York society. She said she was in utter agony. But she saw Franklin again at the parties. When he invited her to his 21st birthday party at Springwood, she went. Gradually, they began seeing more of each other. He was fun, and he made her laugh. Franklin's mother didn't want her son to get serious about any girl. She wanted him to finish college and start a career. Yet Franklin grew fonder and fonder of Eleanor. She was smart and more interesting than other girls. She had lived and traveled in Europe. She spoke French even better than he did. And with her tall, slim figure, gold hair that fell below her waist, and lovely blue eyes, she was not an ugly duckling, not in his eyes. Franklin asked Eleanor to marry him, and she said yes. Sarah was not at all pleased with the news, but she stayed calm and asked them not to rush into marriage. They were too young, so Franklin and Eleanor agreed to wait. Sarah whisked her son off on a 6-week cruise to the Caribbean. Secretly hoped he might forget Eleanor. Instead, the trip made him long to get back to her. Finally, in the fall of 1904, Sarah gave in and they announced their engagement. Franklin and Eleanor were married in New York City on March 17, 1905. Eleanor's Uncle Ted, the president, gave away the bride. After a 3-month honeymoon, the couple returned to New York City. Sarah had taken care of everything, leaving Eleanor with nothing to do. They moved into a home completely furnished and only 3 blocks from where Sarah lived in New York. A few years later, Sarah would build 2 buildings next to each other with connecting doors on different floors that were never locked. It was almost like living together. The couple's first child, Anna Eleanor, was born in 1906. James was born a year later. Sadly, their 3rd child, Franklin, would die of the flu when he was only 8 months old. They would have 3 more children, Elliot, Franklin Jr., and John. Franklin studied at Columbia Law School just as Eleanor's Uncle Ted had. Then he joined a well-known law firm on Wall Street. However, the job never really excited him. And although he loved Hyde Park, Franklin did not want to spend his life as a gentleman farmer like his father. What did appeal to him? Politics. So, in 1910, Franklin ran for office. He was 28 years old.